As I approach 1 million subscribers, I decided it would be nice to upscale some skyboxes to that number of pixels. The skyboxes in Half-Life 1 are typically 256 by 256 pixels, which I'll be upscaling to 1024 by 1024. I chose the skyboxes since, after having upscaled Dust 2 last year, the effect it had on the skybox was perhaps the most profound. So for this video, I've done it to a load of other Half-Life 1 and CS 1.6 skyboxes. AI upscaling is when a computer, trained on thousands of images already, uses that knowledge to try and add details to new images, in this case skybox textures. It does its best. It makes lines look smoother, blurs gradients better, and adds more grass to grass and trees to trees. At a glance it looks better, just don't look too closely or you'll spot the problems. Take Back Alley's skybox for instance. Upscaling it makes it all look a lot more in focus, but adds purple artifacts around the bright lights. To remove these, I ran it through another AI program trained to denoise photos, and this lessened the problem somewhat. But it also blurred and removed some of the other details in the process. How can I put it? You don't get something for free. The more you try to manipulate the image, the more of the original it loses until it becomes nothing more than a bubbling, trippy mess of faces, a terrifying glimpse at how an AI slave perceives its makers. So let's get on with the skyboxes. I'll start with CX, which is my favourite. This valley, bathed in a gold filter, goes from blobby painting to looking almost like a believable valley. Trees are one of AI's favourites, so it's no surprise that it does a good job here. Badlands doesn't end up looking like a convincing landscape. But then again, did it really look like one in the first place? The upscaling here more obviously highlights the limitations of the original 3D render. I noticed there's usually some kind of lake in them somewhere, which the upscaling does enjoy. This skybox is from Zen at the end of Half-Life 1. What strikes me about the original is the limited colour palette. There's obvious banding and dithering where it doesn't have enough shades to produce a smooth gradient. And this is something the upscaling does a good job of converting into how it should have looked, were there more colours available. It also smooths up the edges of the floating islands. It might butcher the details on them, but it's an alien island, perhaps it's meant to look like that. I said earlier how Back Alley gets those weird purple halos around stuff, which I got rid of using a denoiser program, but there's another reason for not using that with skyboxes. These images are made up of 6 faces, kind of like a cube. And when I'm upscaling or denoising them, it treats each face separately, so the more manipulation I do to them, the more obvious the joins between them become. Just so you can see what I mean, here are some that have been denoised as well. You can very clearly make out the top picture and where it connects with the rest. And yes, I could fix this kind of stuff with some manual tweaks, but this video already overran its time budget. It was intended as a quick filler video, but has ended up taking more time than the entire Kill Feed trilogy did to make. So that showed me. I was sad that I couldn't denoise this watery one without revealing the skybox's boxy nature. Here it is when it's only been upscaled. The AI has correctly blurred the clouds and rippled the water, but there's noticeable purple fringing and perhaps a bit too much contrast. Definitely still a large improvement over the original. Now this one. I didn't have a clue what they were thinking. The original skybox is so blurred it looks like they took the picture out of a moving car's window or something. And not only that, it isn't a full skybox, just 2 pictures repeated. With this one, I don't care if I reveal the box shape, because it's kind of asking for it. So I used another of my AI programs to focus the image, and then I upscaled. The result is artificial, but it shows how much you can fix a broken image if you don't mind results which some consider unnatural. Coming up next are 2 city skyboxes. This one is seen on Assault, and has that weird building that looks like it glitched up when the skybox was being generated. In the AI's defense, it doesn't have a lot to work on here. It straightens blurry edges, but with no natural detail, the result appears as nothing more than a watercolour. TSC City, on the other hand, works out a lot better. The upscaling gives the buildings the clarity they need to be convincing, and it even adds spikes to that Chrysler lookalike over there. This is definitely how the city was meant to look, with the technology ready to support it back then. Behold, one of the greatest skyboxes of all time. This one's from that bit in Half-Life 1. I replayed it recently and honestly it hasn't aged well. But the skybox is beautiful, and I don't think upscaling quite does it justice. The result looks almost like it's been sketched. I mean, it doesn't know what reality looks like, it can only go with what's there already, so it could just be that the original canyon had a cartoony style to its features, and we're somehow expecting AI to identify it as a real canyon and to shade it accordingly. One bit that does look great though is the rock face. Just look at this before and after. Shame you can't see this side of it much in game. If you want a fun drinking game, drink every time you see a lake of some kind in these skyboxes. This one's from Office, depicting a frozen skyline and mountain range, so you'd think you'd be safe. But you're not. Even this one has a lake for some reason. I bet it's those ray-traced reflections that made them so popular with mappers back then. I really think the upscaling deserves credit for making the black cliff faces appear so craggy and convincing. I tried denoising these faces as well. See for yourself whether you think it's an improvement or not here. Snow Lake's another similar skybox, only a bit more natural. Upscaling it doesn't make a dramatic difference, but I think it's still a welcome one. If I saw it, I wouldn't immediately know it had been upscaled from an image from a 90s game. And for a grassy equivalent, here's Green Pleasant, which I assume is Green Pleasant, written by somebody with an aversion to vowels. Pleasfix. A bit like the Snow Lake one, this doesn't try anything too ambitious, and as such, the result is convincing and without any distracting artifacts. Most of these upscaled skyboxes look like something you'd get in a game from 2005 or so, but I reckon this one could pass in a game from 2010 or even later. You could say it ends up being green and pleasant. The horrible map Havana has an equally horrible looking skybox, and the upscaled version suffers from coloured noise and too much contrast. I could easily have fixed this, but I think it suits the map nicely. Forest! Look at this, it's like if Pixar made a movie in the 80s. The trees look like something I'd make in Blender, and I don't even know how to use that program. And the colours all look too vivid, but at the same time, too pastel-y. This skybox, more than most, brings back memories of those early 3D games. We used to think this was the future. With D's Storm, I think upscaling successfully brings it back to how it was before colour compression kicked in. I feel this sort of environment is like what happens if you try hard to make a detailed world, but using the wrong textures. And they even went to the effort to make a high quality tree model, only to place it in the one spot nobody would notice it. Still, the upscaling loves it. Torn Sky is a beautiful one. It's got a huge dust cloud and lots of contrast and everything. I know if I was mapping for 1.6, I'd use this one at every opportunity, and upscaling does justice to it by performing an excellent job on the mountains, the sky, and the dust clouds. There were a lot of similar looking alien skies in Half-Life, but to save time I just did this one. There are no details to speak of, just lots of banded colours and dithered patterns, which the upscaling smooths out. It's just a shame the transitions between different sides of the skybox are so noticeable. And this is Morning Dew. At this point I feel that anything I say will be repeating myself, or will be superficial points about how pretty this skybox looks and how it reminds me of places I've been on holiday, or how I really appreciate the effort that's gone into this one and that it's a shame that the upscaling didn't do a better job. At certain settings it could eliminate the colour banding, or apply more detail to the mountains, or to make the clouds cloudier, but I couldn't find an upscaling setting that managed all three of these at the same time, so settled on a poor three-way compromise instead. I feel I know green better than I should do, given that I hardly played 1.6 at all. The scenery isn't very detailed or well put together, but I guess the colours are pretty. The settings I chose for the upscale prioritised forming clean lines, but it meant losing some of the smaller details. That snowy mountain in the distance looks good. Ominously named Doom 1 is a procedurally generated mountain range, which the upscaler makes look even bumpier than it is already. I don't think there's a lot that can be done with this one, since all it was a load of bumps in the first place. DRKG's a convincingly dark, menacing looking mountain range, and the upscaling helps mask the blobby details in the shadows. I miss these sorts of backdrops. Even now, when they look so primitive and flawed, there's something atmospheric about them that makes me just want to explore them, which obviously being a 2D skybox, I'll never be able to do. And last, and by all means least, is Half-Life's Black Mesa skybox at different times of day, which I found totally underwhelming because there's not much here to see. So what's the goal of this upscaling? Honestly, I just wanted to make a video for you to enjoy, but I guess I could go ahead and upscale some more of the 1.6 maps like I did with Dust 2 last year. Or I could use what I've learned from this and apply it to my own games to lighten the art workload by relying on upscaling to do the bits it does best. Upscaling has already found its way into games. Some things, like the Commandos and Command & Conquer remakes, already use it to improve the quality of their assets and videos. The community-made Final Fantasy IX remake has had its own algorithm trained on that particular art style, and with incredible results. Upscaling will never be as good as if the originals had been made at that quality. Take a look at these textures for 1.6. These are the originals, It must have been heartbreaking for the artists to see the low-resolution versions that were eventually used in-game. And try as I might, upscaling didn't restore these to how they looked originally. And for upscaling in real time, there's Nvidia's DLSS. This doesn't upscale textures, but rather the whole screen. It renders games at a lower resolution and then uses AI to upscale them again in the hope of retaining the original image quality, but with improved frame rates and nice anti-aliasing, which is a bigger thing than I think people realise, because these days it's either that or rubbishy post-process stuff. DLSS isn't quite the same as the upscaling that I'm doing though, since DLSS can pick the details it gets to work with, while I'm stuck with whatever the original looks like. Check out 2Clicks Phillips' videos on upscaling if you'd like to know more.